Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cinema Savvy. It is myself, George, joined once more by Neil and Paul for another episode of the Mount Rushmore series. And this week we are going to be going through our Mount Rushmores of DC villains. Brackets, film villains, because it's something I didn't specify until we actually started mapping out the episodes. So we are going to be doing another, not necessarily a ranking. It's not as personal as last week's, which we had Paul on for, which was a wonderful video. We obviously had Neil on for the Tim Burton one. We're each going to be going through our Mount Rushmore of DC villains that we've seen on film. And then at the end of the video, the three of us will come together and do a combined one, which is a bit more neutral if we're all being opinionated or have personal attachments. I will always go to my terrible first example. I put X-Men 3 in my X-Men Mount Rushmore for personal reasons, and it definitely did not go in the combined one. So that's that. But I feel like I've jumped into an intro too quickly and gone through stuff. How are we all doing tonight?
Good. I'm kind of actually nervous to go through this because I suddenly realized it's one of those things that I'm so connected to that I could not make a list of 4. I could make a list of 40.
Yeah.
Like, damn, how do I work this down?
Yeah, it was tough actually because I was like, right, DC movies. I was like, that's a good villain. That's a good villain. That's a good villain. That's a good villain. It was tough.
And I think it's one of them that the way we do these episodes, we've got a short season running through to December of 13 episodes. We're trying to tie it into new releases. If you didn't tell by our intro, The Penguin starts streaming on HBO. No, not HBO Max. It is just on HBO Max this week. Or was it just Max? In the UK, we're going to have it on Sky. And it does start airing episode 1 this Thursday, episode 2 from Sunday, and then it is weekly. And we, at the time this video going up, we may have the first 5 episodes going up as a spoiler-free review. We may be luckier at some point and have all 8 up as a spoiler-free review, but we are pre-recording this a fair few days in advance, so there will be more details when something has popped up on the channel. I kind of want to jump.
Good.
Yeah, I know Neil has seen most of it, and I kind of want to ask you more, but I can't because we're pre-recording and I can't wait to watch it. But fans of the Batman, we have new Reverse Batman, which is very exciting.
Very, very exciting.
I cannot wait. And this is why we're doing this one. And I'm going to spoil the next 2 weeks as well. If you're a fan of DC, next week we are doing the same video, but with DC heroes. The reason why is there's nothing else to tie it to. And the week after, we're doing the best DC film, because that week we have Joker 2. Which it's 2 DC projects 2 weeks apart. We might as well fill the gap with another DC one. So 3 DC Mount Rushmores across the next 3 weeks. We won't be doing any others in this series because it's not just DC, but they're getting a good front. And we'll be announcing.
If you ask me,
I'm happy that we've got all 3 on the board because it's a great way to kickstart. And doing villains first, let's be honest, like it's a lot more exciting to talk about villains than heroes. Maybe I'm in a minority on that, but I feel like that's just a thing, and it's not exclusive to comic books either. Like for me, that's genuinely like growing up. I didn't end up a villain, thankfully, otherwise I'd be behind bars. But I enjoy a better villain on a film and TV show than I do a good hero. I don't know if it's an issue of the chosen one narratives, but it's always more. Give me a laughing Voldemort over a very nice Harry Potter any day. Give me Darth Vader over Luke Skywalker.
They get the good lines. They get the good lines. I have to admit, villains nowadays in movies are a bit poo. There's not been a Hans Gruber in a while.
Well, if they did a Hans Gruber today, they'd go and do a prequel explaining why he was actually a good guy. That's one of the problems
I have. This exact issue. I was talking about this at work today, and I was saying
he had actually screwed over his family, and that's why. And he had to then do the thing. And actually, it was his money all along that he was stealing.
We have a real problem with trying to make them sympathetic characters. Sometimes a bad guy can just be a bad guy. Like you don't have to have a terrible, tragic backstory. You could just be a complete shithead.
Ironically, I would say, with the exception of maybe Vader, if you do like a list of like best movie villains, I'd say the top 4 have, which would be spoilers for this one probably, the Joker, Anton Chigurh, the Wicked Witch of the West, and Hans Gruber. No origin. Like no one gives a shit. Like just go in, be evil, either win or lose.
Yeah.
Get all the good lines. Get all the best lines of dialogue, and preferably be played by someone handsome.
I thought that's played by someone British. I was going to say that always goes to
Be
distance.
British. Being British does help. Being played by Alan Rickman usually helps.
Yeah, definitely. And he's
Robin
not on this
Hood, bad
list.
film. Sheriff of Nottingham, good villain.
Did Alan Rickman make it into a DC film? I don't, not in my memory.
No.
I know Remus Lupin did. He hasn't made my list though. But
Yes.
that was a lovely surprise in Wonder Woman. I was like, oh my god, it's Lupin. And I was like, yeah, they didn't cast him to be a politician for no reason. And then he was the God of War, which I actually really liked. He's not on my
That was
list.
good casting, actually. He probably. I can't imagine he made any lists, but good casting.
I think he's an incredibly underrated actor, and I may have just contributed to that by not calling him David Thewlis, but by calling him Remus Lupin.
David Thewlis is one of my favourite actors. I love David Thewlis, and as we said in the last episode, people used to say I look like Lupin. People say I dress like Lupin. He's the best character in the Harry Potters. Fight me.
I love how I wasn't going to bring Harry Potter today, but sorry, we've done it already. But I guess that being said, the Mount Rushmore. So you guys, Neil, you've mentioned it's a bit tricky. Paul, I'm curious when you get to yours, but for anyone watching at home, we'll do one each. So I'll do my first pick, then Neil will do his, then Paul will do his. Then we'll move on to our seconds. And for anyone curious, Mount Rushmore, no, it's not 1, 2, 3, 4 in an order. It's a top 4. It's not a ranking of within that 4. It's not these are the best of this. We might have all of our own reasons as to why this villain is there. And if I kickstart guys with round 1, I'm just going to get the most obvious pick off the board. And if anyone's ever watched a bit of our channel, you know exactly where I'm going. And I'm going for none other than the Oscar winner himself, the Joker.
King Tut?
I was going to make a Jared Leto joke, but I just can't do it. We're obviously going with Heath Ledger's Joker, who... do I need to explain this in 2024? I don't think I do. To me, sorry guys for the discussion later, you can't do this list without him on it. He's changed cinema. To me, the best performance by a villain in a comic book film, and there's a great many villains in comic book films, but I think I will always go back to this. I mentioned last week the impact of this film. I think this performance as well, with the tragedy of Heath Ledger that goes with it, that we lost, who I think would go on to be one of the defining actors of his generation. I think people forget how young he was really when he made The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
His issues with his sleeping and so many other things. You look at the films he'd done before, the directors he'd been working with. It's a real shame that we didn't get to see more from him. And without fixating upon what didn't happen, you know, I do believe, like many of us, he would have popped up in that third Nolan film had he been here, but he wasn't, and that's not a problem. But he's on my board. It is just, to me, the absolute best of Pinnacle, and I love that this gave us the Joker to have 3 iconic actors playing him by this point: Nicholson, Mark Hamill, and 4, Cesar Romero, and then we get Heath Ledger, an incredible group. Then we get Joaquin Phoenix. We don't talk about the other one. And maybe Barry Keoghan in the future. But yeah, Heath Ledger's Joker. I can't add more to what's been said over 16 years, so I'm just going to politely hand over to you guys to start your round 1s.
Okay. So mine is also the Joker, but we're going to play the generational gap here, and I'm going to go Jack Nicholson because it just scared the living daylights out of me as a kid. So I think this may have come up in conversation when we were on talking about Tim Burton, but I was 4 when that film was in the cinema, so I didn't get to go see it on the big screen because it was 15 in the UK back then. So I saw it on VHS when it came out, whenever it did that year. And I was already a fan of Cesar Romero's version of the character, so I knew who he was. And Jesus, did it scare the living daylights out of me. I still struggle with a couple of scenes, even at my ripe old age, because when
intro scene is scary. That bit where he's got the mirror and he's like hysterically laughing. It's scary, man.
So after he kills his boss and he's sitting in the office and it's all dark and he's got the newspaper and he smears the blood on the newspaper and he does his little weird whoop, whoop, and then does the maniacal laugh. Just hairs stand up. And I do have a fear of being gassed. I can't be anywhere near green smoke, thanks to that film. So it had quite a profound effect on me as a kid.
Nicholson's is good. It's so good. He gets good lines as well. Like the bit where he's like, you know what? I'm glad you're dead. That bit. The bit that also wait till they get a load of me.
Yeah.
Mm.
I was talking
Money,
to
money,
somebody
money.
today.
Who do you love? I love that bit. The bit where he's dancing and he's like, I'm giving you free money. Where's Batman? He's at home cleaning his tights.
Yep.
With
I was
the
trying to
massive
explain
gun
to someone
comes out.
today. Oh, I mean, that's just not even
It's
physically
so
possible.
good.
But I do feel like there's I don't feel like we've yet had like maybe not every actor that's played him has been good in the role. There are kind of aspects of each live action version which I feel like they did well, and that if you put them all together, you'd have a really great Joker. So I feel like Nicholson is really creepy, and I think he does that really well. And I think Ledger did the lack of any kind of origin and the way he's like chaotically just dipping in and out without you needing to know why, because he's just chaos. I feel like they did that really well with his version. And then I feel like I'm going to go there with Jared Leto, although that was not a great script, I feel like he did the completely batshit bonkers crazy without any care of consequence whatsoever really, really well. And I feel like if you picked that creepiness, that chaos, and then that complete psychotic nature from the three of them and stuck it together, I think you'd have a really, really interesting version of the character, which could potentially come close to kind of a Hamill, which I feel is like the iconic and the best version.
We need our Brosnan. Like, you know how Brosnan was like all the Bonds combined into one?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think he excels at everything that all the others could do. We need that for the Joker.
I think Keoghan could do it. If he's given the chance, I reckon Barry Keoghan could do it, because I think he can be... like, if you've seen Killing of a Sacred Deer, that's the psychopath. If you've seen Saltburn, you've seen the end of Saltburn, when he's got his Barry Keoghan's out, you know, that could be the nutty version. So I reckon I reckon if anybody's going to do it, I reckon he could usurp and be the definitive if he's given the right material.
And I think Reeves, you mentioned the material, I think Reeves is going to be the one that goes there. Not that we know anything about Batman 2 or 3, whatever, but I thought from day one they're going to head towards an Arkham Asylum film. And if we do eventually get that, then I do think it is going to be the Joker, the Asylum, a third one in the trilogy, because they've not done that with the Joker yet. They've not had him be the lead in the third. And I think that's where they could go if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Yeah, good pick. I mean, 2 Jokers on the board. Come on, guys. The background's purple. We knew this was going to happen. Paul, who is your first pick?
I'm going to go with Jared Leto. No, I'm not. Sorry, Charlie. No, look. I'm going to say this up front. I've not picked any Jokers because I knew that there would be Jokers from you guys. So I thought, you know, I knew that Ledger would come up. So I've gone for ones, you know, that I think are also great, but maybe get lost in the tussle. And do you know what? I'm going to pick Ares from Wonder Woman.
Really?
Right? He was always on my list. He was always on my list. For me,
sorry that I sort of mocked it before, because I thought he's great.
Yeah, no, he is.
And here's the thing, right? Here's the thing with Ares, right? He's right.
Yeah.
Everything he says at the end, he's 100% right. So his villain plan is just human nature. You know, the whole bit at the end when he says to Diana, he's like, you know, he's like, humans will destroy themselves. That's why I push for an armistice I know they cannot keep. It's such, you know, I whisper ideas, they make the poison. I push them in the right direction, they destroy each other. I think is such a great... his, like, you know, like villain speech. Maybe it's partly Thewlis's performance. He's so calm.
Yeah.
And he's so unassuming that, you know, you kind of... he is terrifying when he appears and, you know, he's like disappearing and reappearing. And you can see, you know, and partially, I know Gal Gadot's whatever, and not to get into politics, I actually think she's a good actress. I'm just going to put that out there. In the role of Wonder Woman, I think she's very good. And that scene, you can see the panic on her face as he's starting to explain things. And when she thrusts the sword at him and he puts his hand out and it gets destroyed. And, you know, just how calmly he delivers it when he's like, I'm not the god of war, I'm the god of truth. Like, just the way Thewlis delivers it is so... there's like a barely repressed glee at how upset it's making her. And I think, you know, all right, when he gets the helmet and he's chucking CGI debris at her, it's maybe not the most compelling of things. But I still think that whole speech he gives in the tower and his whole point about, I just give them an idea. They're the ones that then figure out ways to kill each other. You know, I will do this forever. I will forever be telling them to create peace because the next time will be worse. It's what I've always done, and it's human nature to want to kill. And I think as well, that bit where he shows her Dr. Poison's face, and he's like, they do it to themselves. And it's just, I actually do think he is a really compelling villain. And I think, you know, a lot of people were like, oh, it was so obvious he was the bad guy. And I was like, I'll be honest with you, I genuinely was all in on Ludendorff being Ares.
Yeah, no, I'm with you on that one.
But when he appeared, because I was just a bit like, it's just David Thewlis. He just shows up and plays kindly mentor figures. And yeah, when he showed up in that tower in the cinema, I was like, it was Sir Patrick. And even when he's playing that role of like this sort of crippled old man, and he's like, you know, I think it's a great performance, and I do think Ares is a good, compelling villain.
Yeah.
And I kind of think with Wonder Woman, right? And I know you love 84, so I'm not here to sort of jump on it. But
you've got two people who love 84. Yeah,
this is where I'm going. So
go grab the soapbox. Let's climb on it.
The choice to put this in World War One is something I loved because as someone that was a bit nerdy of history at school, it is the most brutal war. Yes, World War II was horrific, as all.
Yeah, but there's a bad guy in World War II. There's no bad guy in World War One.
Bingo! It's three cousins that fell out, and also that leads to World War II anyway. The choice to put the God of War in World War One, I thought is ingenious. If I'm really honest, and the caveat with that is, I didn't mean to diss on 84, but it was kind of like, oh, we did this great historical setting. What next? The 80s.
The 80s.
And which, yes, we'd all love it. I just would have loved it if something else went with that. And I feel that without harping onto another franchise, X-Men First Class nailed the 60s, the timing, everything. Then it was like, yeah, so what's next? Vietnam. And then the 80s. Like, no, nothing was gained from your eras of choice. But when there's a story reason, I wouldn't want to have Wonder Woman Vietnam and have God of War pop up, you know, out of like a rabbit hole or something. Like that'd be pointless. But World War One, perfect for what that film needed to be. It was such a good idea, and I'm glad they went with that.
And yeah, you know what? It's great that revelation that Wonder Woman then gets when she, you know, when there's that great bit where I think it's before Sir Patrick appears when she's killed Ludendorff. And she can't figure out why they're still killing each other. And she's like, they're still doing it.
Yeah.
And then she's like, I don't understand. And not to praise Wonder Woman more than I already will, but I do also just love that bit where Steve Trevor says, it's all our fault. And she goes, it's not my fault. And he's like, well, maybe it's mine. He's like, maybe that's just who we are. And then you get Ares going, it's who they are. They will just do this. It's such a, yeah, it's just such a great. It's, you know, that bit as well when he reveals that she's the God Killer is such a great. It's done maliciously. He does it like, you're the God Killer. He's like, you know, you're not made of love. You're made just to kill. You're just as bad as I am. It's like he's like I say, he's such a horrible, but he's got a point. You know, his point is, kill me. It's fine. They're still going to do it, and you know. They do. They keep doing it time and time again. So yeah, I do. I think DCEU had a lot of problems, but I do think Ares was a great villain.
Yeah,
no, agreed. I'm glad we've got three different people on the board after one. I'm very impressed with that. Heading into the second one, I don't know if this is going to be really obvious, but there are certain films you grew up with as a kid that you just can't not talk about. And I think as I've got older, we've seen this character done multiple times. We've seen it done in so many different mediums. We've seen it done historically. And there's no way I can do this list about Jim Carrey's The Riddler. I'm not even apologizing. My favorite comedy actor ever. And
thank you. I love Jim Carrey.
I absolutely love the guy. As a kid, right? I'm not taking this for granted. I become an adult and think, holy shit, they got Jim Carrey as the Riddler, and like I could not ever imagine a more perfect bit of casting happening today in any medium to get the comedy unanimous best comedy actor who's had that wild breakthrough year in a Batman film as the Riddler, full on in the spandex as well, going for it at every second. He is so good.
What you're saying is that you do condone his buffoonery.
Does not that just adds to the
Oh my
enigma
God.
of the Riddler?
For
The fact in real life.
For anyone that doesn't understand what I've just referenced there's a very famous story Jim Carrey tells that when he met Tommy Lee Jones walked up to him, hugged him tight, and said, "I hate you. I really don't like you." And Jim Carrey was shocked, and he said, "I cannot sanction your buffoonery."
Was it a restaurant as well?
Yeah, that is. Apparently, the reason is that I think it was like Dumb and Dumber had like opened the same day as a Tommy Lee Jones thriller, and Dumb and Dumber like just decimated the thriller. And it's like, but like, it'd be the equivalent of someone walking up to like Robert Downey Jr. and going, "I cannot sanction your Iron Manning." Like, just fucking deal with it, bro. Like,
then someone said, "Great, be Dr. Doom instead."
Tommy Lee Jones tried to out Jim Carrey. It's like, you'll never win that fight. Jim Carrey is a rubber-faced monster. You will never win. He's great.
So
he gets so many great lines in it as well.
The Batman exhibit that is now open in London through November, they've got Jim Carrey's Riddler costume there. So they've got the kind of the spandex suit with the jacket over the top and the hat. But they also have his cane, which I was very excited to see. But then I absolutely flipped. They've got one of the bat bombs. The little...
There's one he twists.
Yep. They have one.
It's so great. I feel like heading into the early 10s, right? And it's a bit Star Wars prequest for me. Everyone everywhere just shat on the Joel Schumacher Batman films. And I'm not saying there's been like a revision of them. You know, people say, they weren't great.
I feel like
there's been a bit of a revision, but I
and
still
Robin is awful, but Forever has some good moments.
I'm seeing Andy Robin at the cinema tomorrow.
It's mainly Jim Carrey and a lot of the fantastic Seal song, because "Kiss from a Rose" is a tune. Oh, it's good. I just
think with the 90s ones, I understand like at the time, right, going from Burton to Schumacher was wild. Mid-series as well. Like, imagine like you don't get the Dark Knight Rises and instead you get, I don't know, like Edgar Wright's Batman set in London or something. Like, it would just be so insane to think about. And I just think as time's gone by, and I love Paul Dano in the Batman, and I'm so glad we had that iteration of the Riddler, not another Jim Carrey imitation, because I don't think you'll ever get another Jim Carrey. And actually, we go even further back to Frank Gorshin's Riddler, who is amazing in the animated series in the 60s film. Jim Carrey is almost the extension of that. That's the movie star doing it in the high budget movie in the 90s. And I just don't think we'll ever get that again. And when I look at comedy performances, I look at villains, I just think Batman Forever nails it. The tone is right. The fact they're playing battleships, trying to like blow up them is ridiculous. And it's so good.
Jim Carrey,
so good.
The Riddler has one line in the film that I quote all the time, which is, Two-Face shows up to the party and he's like guns blazing. And then Batman ascends from the ceiling and he just goes, "Your entrance was good. His was better." Always gets me every time. When he punches the guy and he's like, "Ah!"
But you know what, though?
Man has bats on the brain.
There's a shot there which I guarantee you Martin is laughing right now because he'll hear me talking about this. There is a shot that I don't know if it's a goof or if it's on purpose in that sequence where he smashes one of the displays in that place, picks out a massive diamond, right? So he's holding a ginormous diamond, flicks like his little eyeglass to look at it, and then it's like this big in his hand. And you would barely notice it because it's you look at the other hand that pulls out the eyeglass. But I don't know if it's a goof or not that it goes from this massive diamond to suddenly this tiny little thing. Just between shots like that. It's so weird. It gets me every time and it drives me up the wall.
I love it. Do you like my jacket? It keeps me seen when I'm jogging at night.
It's
great. I'm so glad you picked it.
No, I needed to. Listen, any Jim Carrey's 90s film puts a smile on my face when I watch them. And I'm not just picking it for Jim Carrey, but as a Batman villain, I don't think we could ever get that today unless the entire tone, everything. But Batman, pretty dark, the tone in Forever as well. Like there's,
Yeah,
we've got circus people being killed and massacred. Like,
oh no,
but you get
boiling acid.
again. Why are you not a voiceover artist?
It's just that guy at the very beginning. Do you know what? Actually, I've got a very specific, quite cute memory of Batman Forever. I remember when did it come out? 1995.
I wasn't born.
95. So
Yeah.
it come out on video in 96, right? I have a vague memory of what I vaguely remember boiling acid as a 2-year-old, and I remember my parents rented the VHS and my whole family watched it because it was like, oh my god, a VHS, and they were eating pizza and they gave me, little 2-year-old me in a high chair, pizza, and I fell asleep, right? Because I was just like chewing on it. So my parents took the pizza away, took the little tray bit away, but I was still in the chair. And apparently I woke up, immediately picked up my foot and put it in my mouth like it was pizza. Can't do that anymore. I'm not flexible enough anymore. But that's why I got a lot of love for Batman Forever. Not as much as Jonathan Ross, who said it was the greatest film ever made. It's the Seal song. It's the Seal song that does it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's my. Listen, I'm glad we got to talk about the Riddler. I don't know if it was obvious I was going to pick him or not. But yeah.
And I'm glad you did.
Neil, your second.
Oh, this is where I have to. I'm so like, where am I going to go? Do I want to stick Bat villain or am I going to go elsewhere?
This is also what I'm afraid of. I'm really afraid of it being 4 Batman villains.
Well, that's why I have to admit I've tried to steer away from just going this Batman guy, this Batman guy, this Batman guy, because you can just fall into this.
And I know it's so like not Batman
gallery in comic books. Nobody comes. This is the thing. Nobody comes. The only I would say, Batman has the best villains, and then Spider-Man second. But I don't even. Spider-Man's aren't even as iconic. Like, sorry, I love Doc Ock, I love Green Goblin, but they're not the Joker, the Riddler, Two-Face, Catwoman, Poison Ivy, Mad Hat. Like, there's just so many great villains.
The list just keeps going.
And the movies do them all so well. God, sorry.
So we're gonna ignore the fact that I'm wearing all of the Batman, and I am actually gonna go animated, and I'm gonna go with Tony Todd's version of Darkseid. So he voiced him in 3 animated movies. I kind of went for it for Apocalypse War, which was the last one of the big animated continuity that ran for a whole bunch of movies. I forget exactly how many, but we're going to ignore Darkseid from Zack Snyder's Justice League because he's on screen for all of about 30 seconds. But Tony Todd was just like this amazing. He just got the character, like I don't even know the word to describe it really. You just knew that this guy was going to end a universe. Like he just encapsulated that this guy, we need everyone together. We don't just need a Batman. We don't just need a Superman. We need everyone. And if you go and watch the kind of that movie, it's just the perfect, like, we're all doomed. There's nothing we can do here. He's so imposing. He just cuts through every scene that he's in. And you understand more than you would from that kind of glimpse in Justice League, who the character is and just how much of a, like, crisis level event that is for the DC universe. And in that, so for anybody that's not seen it, that film ended a continuity by forcing Flash and Constantine to basically kill everyone. They killed the entire of that multiverse and created a new one because Darkseid had killed everyone that had attempted to take him out. So like characters like Superman had ended up as like cyborgs, members of the Justice League had been completely wiped out and killed, and it was just whoever survived had to just end everyone else's life because there was nothing they could do to stop this version of Darkseid. And I think that makes him deserving of a place on my Mount Rushmore.
Excellent. I can't really comment because I've not seen many of the animated films, which is great because this is why I needed somebody that knows DC a lot better than me. And we did chat. We knew the animated films were going to be in it. I didn't know if you were about to go into Hamill. We're like, not a Batman animated. I was like, but I'm glad of that because you're right. My main knowledge of Darkseid is unfortunately the Justice League and the Behead Steppenwolf. Sorry if that made your list. Yeah. But it's. I've heard a lot of very good stuff about the recent animated stuff for sort of the last 10, 15 years. And I know there's been a big box that hasn't there as well recently, putting all together.
Yeah, so they started out with a Superman movie based on the death of Superman. which was called Superman Doomsday. And then they did the Nolan tie-in anthology film, Gotham Knight,
Gotham
which
Knight,
was a whole bunch of little animated segments. So there was no kind of continuity. They'd just done those 2 movies, and then they went, there's kind of a thing here. And then they started doing a couple a year. And then after a few years of them doing really well, they started a continuity. So they came to like a unique like art style that were going to be the core movies. They'd do 2 of those a year. Then they started doing 4 movies a year. So they'd do 2 Elseworlds and 2 in the universe. And it might just be a Batman one, or it might be a Superman one, or a Wonder Woman one, but it would be the same voice actors. And then every now and then there'd be a Justice League one. And so they did a bunch of stories that led all the way up to when they had this massive universe of characters. They basically did the MCU in animation, probably nearly as many films as well, and then brought in Darkseid and got to this point where it was like, this is the big Avengers Assemble style moment that ended it all, but it was so good. It's really, really beloved at the fan base.
Nice. That's good. That's really good. I've got a few friends that recommend them, so it might be something I need to look at. Paul, have you seen them? No, whereas I'm in the same.
I've seen some. I've seen I think I've seen more of the Elseworlds one. So I've seen like Batman Year One, Long Halloween 1 and 2, Dark Knight Returns 1 and 2. So I saw more Gotham by Gaslight. Gotham by Gaslight I had to watch because Anthony Stewart had voiced Alfred. Yeah. So as a Buffy and a Batman fan, I was like, oh, 2 birds, 1 stone. But I've not watched a lot of the like the continuity ones. I have to admit, I've been remiss. I do want to, but I just I haven't got around to it yet. But I knew Neil would pick one from the animated ones. He's like the animated guy. That's why.
Yeah, actually, to be fair, that's the first film I ever got to interview anybody on. Not Tony Todd, but that was the first time I ever did any interviews at all. Actually, was that film? Forgotten about that.
Got the personal time as well, which goes extra distance too. Love it. Paul, your second pick.
I'm going to bring it back to Batman for my only Batman pick. I think this will be my only Batman villain pick. I think.
Where's it going? Where's it going?
Can we guess? Do we know who's it going to be? It's going to be Ra's al Ghul from Batman Begins.
Ooh.
I think Ra's al Ghul's a great villain, first and foremost. In the comics, he's great. And in the animated series where he's voiced by David Warner, oh, yes, chef's kiss. And in this one, although he's not, here's the thing with this one, right? And this is going to be about Nolan as well. He does a great thing, which is his casting is so clever, right? He cast Liam Neeson. Liam Neeson in 2005. This is before Taken. This is before he gets in the stable with Luc Besson and all the action movies. This is Liam Neeson of Schindler's List. This is Liam Neeson of Gangs of New York. This is a Liam Neeson who always plays the mentor figure, dies within, before the second
Narnia.
Right? Narnia as well. Star Wars. People going into this are like, oh, he's like Qui-Gon Jinn again because he's training up Batman. Genius. So you get the start of the film, and he is playing the mentor figure perfectly. He's got all the stuff about rub your chest, your arms will take care of themselves. I had a wife; she was the great love of my life. You must use the teachings of the League of Shadow. Perfect. Oh, great. And then he dies. Right? Oh, of course, Liam Neeson. He shows up. He plays the mentor. He dies. You forget about him. The Scarecrow's the villain. The mob's the villain. I'm invested in Batman Beginning. And then what happens? He's at a party. Liam Neeson shows up. And it's such clever casting. It's only Nolan would go, I'm going to use your inbuilt assumption about an actor to actually make a really emotional point. And it's so clever the way he does it. And also, one of my favorite lines in Batman Begins is when also because the situation is quite funny. The woman goes over and goes, let me introduce you to Ra's al Ghul. He's like, you're not Ra's al Ghul, I watched him die. Like, what kind of a party? Everyone's just like, but it's the fact that then Liam Neeson turns around and he just goes, is Ra's al Ghul immortal? Are his methods supernatural? And then he does that great line of, or they're just cheap parlor tricks to conceal your real identity, Raz. And then he goes, a man who spends his night scrambling over the rooftops of Gotham won't begrudge me a dual identity. I'm like, oh, it's great. It's great. And Nolan does great. He takes the iconography and he dismantles it in such a great way. And I just want to give a shout out to Dark Knight Rises quickly, and my favorite thing, which is how they deal with Lazarus pits, because in the comics, the Lazarus pit is literally a pit of green water that you go into when you're dead and you come back alive, but you come back insane, right? And Nolan takes the idea of the pit and he turns it into a prison that once you emerge from it, you are reborn mentally, not physically. That's clever writing. The whole idea of the pit, you must rise from the pit and you are reborn, is fucking clever. But Ra's al Ghul as a villain, he's an intellectual and a physical threat. And that's what makes him such an interesting villain for the first film as well. You know, all the stuff he says about, oh, we tried to fix Gotham with economics and it didn't work. Now we're just going to have people rip each other apart through fear. It's so great. It's that end sword fight on, you know, when they're fighting on the train. It's, you know, the action got better in the second and third films, but Ra's al Ghul as a villain is so, I don't know. He is my favorite because I think Liam Neeson plays him with this sense of nobility as well. That he's like, no, I'm doing a noble thing. The League of Shadows is here to cleanse the world, and we're not going to let some rich little bitch in a bat suit stop us. It's great.
He's so good in that film, and I think you're right. You go back to the first time, you forget about him. He literally just—it's the way the woman's like, "Is it Ra's al Ghul or Ra's al Ghul?" And it's like,
I watched him die.
Yeah,
it's like,
and he's so good in that film. And you're right, the mentor figure for me. You know, going for what I was talking about the last few weeks, I'm like, it's Qui-Gon Jinn. Like as you said earlier, everyone's like, Qui-Gon Jinn. Yeah, like I was like,
that. He's going to die. That's what Liam Neeson does in a movie. He shows up, trains the kid, and dies.
But even though I'm like, you burnt my home and I'm burning yours, like we're even. I'm like,
consider us even.
Yeah, he's so good.
Also, he does get one of my favorite lines, which is when he's on the train, and he gets two. Where he goes, "It's time to spread the word," and the word is panic. And then the other one is when Batman smashes in. He goes, "You took my lessons on theatricality, literally."
He's amazing, and I'm glad you brought up Even Rises because I like the fact that trilogy functions as a trilogy because they do go back to the beginning. Yes, obviously his daughter's in Vitalia, but getting the Liam Neeson cameo as well, and people can say what they want about Liam Neeson's acting. Certainly the types of films he's done since Taken. But you're right, at this point in time, because I don't feel he was a household name, but I don't think he was the household name he became after Taken. And obviously you've got the tragedy happened with his wife, that he didn't take action films. I'm guessing you both know he turned down Bond at her request. And it's always weird how he went to action films after she passed and stuff like that. But his acting at this point was so good. And you're right, Paul. You look at that cast and you could make a case for the trilogy. Even Aaron Eckhart, who seems to pop up in nothing these days, who I think there's stories about him just being like a bit of a prick on every set. Every cast is nailed for who he's put in these films, in these roles.
It's
and
interesting as well because
so good.
Because Nolan wanted Gary Oldman for Ra's al Ghul. Yeah. And I can see it.
I can see it, but it would have been Leon.
But it would have been Gary Oldman plays a villain. And it's so great that you get the guy who plays the morally corrupt to play the morally righteous. You get, and you get the guy, because you wouldn't get that delicious Liam Neeson's the villain, that whole thing. Even the bit where he's like, he works for us, but he's not the League of Shadow. When he's talking about Scarecrow, he's like, he thought we were here to hold the city to ransom, but you're actually going to release it and watch them tear themselves apart through fear. It's like, it's great. It's so great. And he looks, also, just on a design point of view, he looks cool. His suit looks cool. I like that they did the comic version with Ken Watanabe. Yeah. And you look at it and you're like, yeah, it doesn't fit in the realistic world, but he's great. He's God, yeah. I think he was also. It's one of those ones. What are you going to do? You're going to do a villain that the other 4 Batman movies have done. Like you want to set your table out different. Go, this is a new Batman. This is a new version. We're not, all right. They do the Joker later. They do Catwoman later too.
Scarecrow new in that one too.
So that first one, it made so much sense to go. We're going to go deep into the mythology, deep. We're going to take a villain that's been there for decades, who's been that kind of thing. And also the whole film's about Batman looking for a dad. Is the dad going to be Gordon? Is it Alfred? he thinks he finds one in Ra's al Ghul. Ra's al Ghul's then like, the only justice is murder, and he's like, no. And then, ultimately he finds, the dad's Alfred, because Alfred is the best, and Michael Caine is the best Alfred. But yeah, Ra's al Ghul in that film is so. I never get bored of watching, and also it looks like Liam Neeson is enjoying himself.
Yeah.
Because he's so imposing as well. You forget Liam Neeson's like 6'4" or something. He's really tall.
Yeah,
and you don't realize it until that bit when when they're all. He's doing that bit where all the ninjas are changing place, and Batman like cuts them so he knows which one's which. And you look, and they're all like 5'9".
Yeah,
It's Liam Neeson. Oh, it's brilliant! He is great.
It's lovely. Last thing I'm going to say that film is the imagery of the fire-breathing horse with Cillian Murphy's Scarecrow. Phenomenal.
There's nothing to fear but fear itself. It's great.
Third, right. I'm going for my third pick. And it's not Batman. So, yes, there's one on the board. I'm going with General Zod from Man of Steel. I guess I've spent a lot of time talking about the performances behind them, and I'm going to do it again. I'm not entirely familiar with Superman, and I'm allowed to say this in this stream. I've still not seen the Christopher Reeve Superman films, which I have to admit. Many people have flagged this to me as a big problem. And I've always, not to be that guy, people are going to be fuming. I've just never found Superman interesting. Sorry.
That was me until this film. I never, as a kid, found him interesting whatsoever.
I've read comics. I've read Death of Superman. I've really tried, and I know I probably will really like the Christopher Reeve ones if I'm honest. I'd want to watch all of them, and I know the first two are the main two to watch. But 2013, we spoke about Nolan. Dark Knight Rises, man. We got that Superman trailer. I'm like, I'm not sure on this. Henry Cavill at that point in time didn't really know who he was. He hadn't really done a lot.
Unknown.
And
I knew him because I like the Tudors.
Do you know what? I really thought you were going to say I knew him because I liked the Hellraiser film that he was in.
I think he was in Stardust for like a minute. He was like the bully in Stardust. That's the only thing I've seen him in. Yeah, Stardust is a banger, by the way, folks. I'll defend that film and to take that song for the edge of time.
Yeah, Rule the World is a great song.
Man of Steel was coming out, and I think I've seen a couple of Michael Shannon films. I was at the point where I'm getting into film a lot more. I've started studying it, and I was like, I'm really excited. The Superman film. I was like, it's darker, it's more brooding, and that's what I was at that point with film. It's like a Nolan film. He's done the story. It's Hans Zimmer. You've really inspired me. Opening day, and I'll never forget this. I had college in the morning, skied off the afternoon. I went to Sainsbury's. I wasn't 18 yet. I was 18. 2013. I was 16, sorry. I was just about to turn 17 because I wasn't old enough to buy 18-rated games yet, and I worked at Sainsbury's at that point, and I had to hide a copy of The Last of Us for my dad to come in and buy it me from my own employer. That's the day The Last of Us came out, and I know nothing about Last of Us.
Wow.
So my weekend was Man of Steel the Friday night, Last of Us the 2 days after. I went to the IMAX. I loved this, every minute of this film. But going back to General Zod, because I'm not here to talk Man of Steel, I love him as a villain. The performance is incredible. And Michael Shannon is an incredibly intimidating person. You look at the films he's been cast in. Even Knives Out, where he's like screaming in Ana de Armas' face, like, you want this cookie? Like, the way he shouts every line of dialogue. He's so great. But casting him as a general from another planet who has been bred and born to have one role in life, which is to be a general of the army for what is left of that country. He is just so good at this. And I know the cool armored suit really adds to that.
Yeah.
But I kind of understand where he comes from. He's not a sympathetic villain. He's now a terrible villain as a person. Also, we've got to talk about the weird dildo spaceships that send them off. I've never been able to unsee that since the video. You know, when they first get sent to prison, you've all seen the memes online. It's ruined that film because I can't take it seriously. But the 20-minute intro fight sequence, him taking over, then coming onto Earth, wanting to terraform it. I defend that fight as well. That's a big problem for a lot of people. They never do this. I'm like, listen, I'm not talking what's realistic in a film of Superman. But by the logic of this, if you have two super soldiers, one of which is a general, having a fist fight, you probably are going to desecrate a city. And shout out to Batman v Superman, your amazing opening sequence of Bruce Wayne running into the smoke. I'm big on that too. But generals on this, I just felt like we haven't really had a sort of authoritative villain. I'm glad you brought Ares earlier, the God of War, because he's phenomenal. But I just don't feel like we've had that sort of physical, threatening villain to match Superman. And I'm not here to sort of deride the Snyder films. You know, I still massively disagree with the Zuckerberg-esque Lex Luthor. And yes, I did fall victim to the Bryan Cranston fan trailer that I'd never recovered from, that I'm sure the whole world saw, that he'd have been the Lex Luthor. But Michael Shannon is Zod. He's unbelievable.
That is great.
And,
I'll tell you one
and
thing
it kind of kills me he came back for the Flash, because it's so lifeless in that. Yet in this, it feels...
He seems so uninto it, versus in Man of Steel, he seems into it.
Yeah.
He spoke about in an interview at Man of Steel recently where he said, I was attracted to Zod because he was talking about, like, I don't want to sound like I forgot the term for it, not like a Just Stop Oil person, but he was talking about the Earth side of things, right? That I was attached to the project because it was this villain who hasn't seen the failures of his planet, so wants to take over another planet, turn it into his own, which has already failed once. And so it really articulated about Zod, and I was like, I like the fact he's just gone for it from this. Okay, ignore the payday on the second coming back to play it, but he's giving everything in this. I love the music for him. His theme is fucking great. The camera where they're building up to him with the transmissions that are going around to Earth. I think he's wonderful.
That is my favorite bit. I am a sucker for a villain making a broadcast. Anytime, even like Magneto in X-Men 3, where he's like, your streets will not be safe, your family will not be safe. And I adore Michael Shannon's "You are not alone." You know, just that whole speech where he's like, "I've traveled across an ocean of stars. He will look like you, but he is not one of you." Oh, that whole bit is so amazing. Also, him screaming, "I will find him," is like really scary. Him going, "I will find him," is scary. He gets my favorite line, which is the bit where he's ripping his armor off, and he's like, "I was trained my entire life to protect the people of Krypton. I was trained to be the peak of physical perfection. Where did you train? On a farm?" It's
right. The Russell Crowe bit, I believe them, they were friends as well. Like there's something there where it's they've got like a scene together. I believe that they were actually like that. And it's so good. He's so good. I love actors that, not that they're shouting, but like they begin a sentence with normal dialogue, and as they finish the line, it is like a screech. And I feel there's an art to it, and Michael Shannon is in that small group. But
he's also the sort of actor where you feel like as he said the words, he's getting progressively angrier, which is what people do. They start calm, and then as they say it, they start getting more, and he does that so well.
And it feels like a physical threat to Superman. And as someone I know I've not seen the originals, I've seen clips from them. I know that Terrence Stamp was the original Zod. I've seen obviously clips of other ones, but I feel like with Superman, and it's Michael Shannon feels, because it isn't just he's big, it's he looks experienced, and you get the whole backdrop. Yeah, he's got the presence, and I think it's such a great, and the way he goes out as well, like, I am going to obliterate this family. You are going to have to snap my neck, a ninja species, and he kind of did it. So I defend Superman for that too. I think it was the right choice, although he is lucky, because if he did snap someone's neck, they could have done that. But he's very lucky the family didn't die. So and he had to do it. And it's a great scene. It's a great film. He's a great villain. And like what we spoke about Ra's al Ghul, it's the great villain for the origin film. That's where I go with Zod. So Man of Steel, you're on the board, and I haven't picked 4 Batman villains. Get it.
Well, I'm going to stick with Superman, actually, and I'm going to go Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor. It had to be Hackman. Definitely not. Definitely not Spacey, and definitely not
Zuckerberg.
Sorry. I couldn't remember his name for a second. It was terrible.
Jesse Eisenberg. Sorry.
Who I actually like as an actor, but wrong way to do that character. Whereas, again, I still don't think we've seen a great comic book to film version of the character quite yet. I think there's been good bits about different versions, but we've not quite gone there yet. Maybe Nicholas Hoult. You never know.
Be curious to see what he does with the role. Be curious
but
to see what I could do with the role.
Yes, absolutely. But I feel like what Hackman got right was doing Lex Luthor in the tone of the film that they were making. So he didn't ham it up too much, but he did to a certain degree. But he still managed to keep some of that kind of megalomaniac entrepreneur, but also wants to rule the world kind of. He just had the right balance of how to do it in the way they did those films, which really works for me. And no one's quite come close to that portrayal yet, as much as that character has never quite come close to what you would get from the comic books as well. And you just, we hadn't seen a supervillain like it up until that point. Like we'd never seen a superhero like that up until that point as well. So I think it was a watershed moment. Not just, I think people will always say, you'll believe a man can fly, which yes, we wouldn't have comic book movies like we do now if we did not have that film, but we wouldn't have comic book villains like we do now if it was not for Gene Hackman in that role. And I think deserves more credit for what it did for the comic book movie villain. And not a one and done as well, which is nice because we live in a world where 99% of them are one and done, which is always a shame.
Excellent. As I said, I've not seen the film, but I have seen a lot of clips from Gene Hackman in it as well. So that's something to look forward to when I get around to it.
I think you will really enjoy them.
Memes, though. There's no memes of Hackman. There's a
No.
lot of memes of Kevin Spacey's wrong.
Yeah, Kevin Spacey doing an impression of Gene Hackman playing Lex Luthor. It's weird. But I was never great with Superman Returns.
No, I'm not a fan. Not a fan.
That's fair. Paul, your third?
My one, I'm going to go quite left field, I think, and one maybe people wouldn't expect from a lesser-known DC property and film.
He's going Jonah Hex.
I'm not. I'm going to go with Lucifer, Peter Stormare.
That was nearly on my list.
Right? I love the Constantine books. Right? Love them. He's a bisexual, supernatural guy. Right? And I like Keanu Reeves. And this is how I view the Constantine film. I view it like I view Batman Returns. I love it as a film. I hate it as an adaptation. Right?
Yeah.
But Lucifer, played by Peter Stormare, is one of my favorite depictions of the devil. He's barely in the film. He's actually not. I think he's in it like maybe 10 minutes tops. When he shows up, he's sweaty. He looks like he's drunk. He's smoking a cigarette. He's in an all-white suit. He's got tar dripping from his feet. And he appears to a dying Constantine and he gives him a cigarette. And Peter Stormare is a great character actor because he's quite big. He's quite a big guy. And when he shows up as Lucifer, he looks like, you rule the underworld. He plays it with this kind of glint of fun, but glint of evil. And what's great is when he like says to Constantine's dying of cancer, and he says, "I'll take the cancer from you." And he's like, "Because I want to see what you can do." Nothing he does is without an ulterior motive. And I think that film, works because they build up Lucifer all the way through. All the way through, there's a talk. If there is a heaven, there must be a hell. If there is a God, there must be a devil. If there's good, there must be bad. All that stuff. And you wonder, what is the devil going to look? Is he going to be like horns? Is he going to be this? And he shows up and he looks like a guy on a massive bender in Vegas. It's so bizarre. And Stormare is just...
I just put myself.
You got so excited, you hit the mute button.
I bloody did. He plays it so well, and I think it's such an underrated performance in an underrated film.
Yep, could not agree more.
I haven't seen it. I've not seen Constantine.
Really?
No, it's a weird one because I remember when he popped up He popped up on the Arrowverse, I think, when I watched it, because he had his own series, didn't he? And it's a character I never really got into. And the Keanu Reeves one, I think we almost watched it at school in RE. But I do love Peter Stormare, and I did not know he was in it. Massively underrated actor who is, I feel, horrifically typecast in any role he's ever been in, but at the same time, he owns the typecast as well. I think he's on that he just gets on with it. He knows it's probably A, it's work. B, you need someone to play an evil German. I'm your guy. And he's always so great. He's so great. Especially in Jurassic Park 2. I love him in that.
Dieter, yes.
I mean, he's not as good as Pete Postlethwaite in Jurassic Park 2, but that's a different conversation.
Fuck,
it's a shame they never got around to making the sequel. I don't know if it's still a thing that DC is looking at. But
I mean, I would prefer a more accurate version. I keep saying to DC, hire me. I will write Hellblazer. You need to get Joe Gilgan to play Constantine. Sophia Botella to play Zatanna. Let's do this thing. But I love Peter Stormare playing Lucifer, smoking cigarettes with weird stuff dripping off his feet. It's a great performance. It's so, like I say, he's my favorite depiction of the devil in a film because he's so atypical to what you would expect.
Yeah. Great choice. Great choice.
Heading into our final picks, I'm really struggling for my final one because I feel like I've had a good balance so far, right? I've got Nolan's Joker. I've gone for Riddler comedy growing up with. And I'm scared I'm dipping back into one of them too because Zod's such a great villain. And it's my Mount Rushmore, right? I'm looking at the villains that have impacted or affected me in a way. I look at these films and I'm stuck between two heavyweights. I'm really trying hard not to laugh at who I might pick. And I'm going to give a special shout out to Batman 66. I can't individually pick any of those villains in a film concept.
Yeah.
But if there was a way I could have picked them as a team up of all the villains coming together, they would be right up on that list any other time. But I'm not doing that. I'm sticking to an individual villain. And I think I'm going to... I can't. I really want to say Arnie, but I just can't. As much as I really want to do a great Mr. Freeze impression. I do believe in the next 10 years, there will be a Mr. Freeze on the big screen somewhere, hopefully in the second Batman film. But I'm stuck between another two heavyweights, which is Batman 89's Joker, and I'm stuck between the Tom Hardy's Bane, which is such a boring pick, right? And I can't go between either because they both had a profound impact. Two completely different roles, but I'm going to go with Jack Nicholson's Joker. So sorry to do two Joker picks, but I am. I came into this film. I think Neil, you might know this. I came into Batman '89 very late.
I'm just going to sit like this.
Well, it's 2 out of 4 being the Joker sort of says it all. But I came into Batman '89 after watching The Dark Knight, and I know we spoke about that generational gap. So my parents had the DVD anthology collection in the old cardboard sleeves. So we always had Forever and Batman and Robin on loop as kids. And I was always too scared to put the other Batman on because it had a 15 certificate. Now, I'll be honest. I saw Kevin and Perry in South Park at the age of like 6 or 7, which is terrible in hindsight. So I really should have been scared of my Batman '89, but the back of the cardboard sleeve, it didn't look like the Joker. It had like a green shine on the white face. And I was a bit creeped out. Like, I think it's the scene of him at the end. And the reason I'm going back to this film is kind of what we spoke about earlier, that when you look at these great villains, I want to see what surrounds the villain. I mentioned Heath Ledger's performance, which he has. But he doesn't really have... He has the performance, he has the film, he has the set pieces. But what '89 Joker has, I think, is the comedy factor. And I think Jack Nicholson can do that comedy into drama, into horror so well, switching it up. I'm thinking of the art gallery, which is one of my favorite scenes. Yes, you have Prince, but that entire... The killing of Bob is one of the most evil things done in a DC film.
My number one guy.
I think this film was almost my introduction to Jack Nicholson as an actor as well. But I don't think I'd seen any Jack Nicholson films. I was 12 when I saw this, so I don't think I'd seen many. And every Jack Nicholson film I've seen, as always, oh wow, he's so fucking good. Like, what else are you going to say? Like, it's Jack Nicholson. He's terrifying. See him in interviews, he's still terrifying. He turns it to a basketball game last year, and everyone's like bowing down to him at the Lakers. He's so good in this film. But I kind of think, I know you mentioned with Lex Luthor a minute ago. I think without Batman 89's Joker, we don't really get other. It doesn't open the door for other iterations that came later. And as a Mount Rushmore goes, I'm not just talking the Joker, right? I think that Batman 89, we're not going to get the Penguin the way we did in Returns. We're not going to get Catwoman. We're not going to get the Tim Burton type things. Yes, we'll get Jim Carrey's Riddler and Arnie's Mr. Freeze, who I love. But I think this really opened the door for actors, like prestigious actors, to come into these superhero films. And it wasn't even a plural in 89, if I'm honest. But historically, of course, Superman had it with Gene Hackman, as you mentioned, and with Zod in the second one, but they're not Jack Nicholson. Hackman's very, very good, but getting undoubtedly maybe the greatest actor of all time, one of them, in this villainous role, playing a superhero character. Okay, he's playing himself a little bit too, but he's still in the makeup. He's still got the smile. He's doing the weird comedy, and I think he's amazing. And I think he has to go on it. And it's a bit boring for me to pick two Joker picks. And you could do a Mount Rushmore of Jokers at this point in time.
You really could.
But I feel like I've got to include him. And I think it's more from that comedy angle that I don't think we've had a villain who's been able to toe the line between multiple, as I mentioned, like drama to comedy, drama to comedy, to horror, to evil, to action. I don't think we've had that from a lot of actors in superhero films. And particularly within DC, I do think that the doors were open for the future for more people to pop up. Really hopeful with Matt Reeves. Penguin series as well. I know that's technically TV, but also film. There's a great rogue gallery, and secondary villains could have a place too. But yeah, I'm going with Nicholson's Batman Joker. And also at my old job, there was a signed Jack Nicholson photo. And so when I worked at Pinewood, that's where Batman 89 filmed. They litter the halls with like famous behind the scenes set photos. But in the office block we were in, the stairs, I'd go up to the posh offices to nip to the posh loos because I'm that type of guy. It was basically an autograph wall. And at this point, I was massive on getting autographs. And I never forget, every time I'd go there, it was he sat in the chair behind the scenes doing the smile like it's a makeup test with Tim Burton. And it signed Jack Nicholson like 2 Prime Shooters. I was like, that's so fucking cool. Like Jack Nicholson, like in the behind the scenes makeup chair. But yeah, sorry for the boring safe pick. I know we spoke about him already, but it's my top three is quite distantly a top three. And Two-Face is too similar to the Riddler, and it feels like more of a comedy angle in that film. It's Tommy Lee Jones's Joker, right? Like, Aaron Eckhart, great performance in that film. I can't pick her. Cillian Murphy, we get you in 3 films, but you're just not up there as the Scarecrow with some of these other these names. And Suicide Squad, you just I love Suicide Squad. I might talk about it in a few weeks' time on another video, but Peacemaker's not a villain because he got a TV series and he's not a villain anymore. So big up John Cena. I almost did open with a joke as well, saying the best DC villain's the Rock because he changed the hierarchy of power, but it wasn't to be.
The best DC villain is David Zaslav. I keep saying
he is. He's not even the best DC villain. He's like the best, like the man who's going to single-handedly destroy Warner Brothers. Is David
Thanos
Zaslav.
of cinema.
That's
all the films disappear.
No, they do. Even that John Cena comedy won't come out. The animated one, ridiculous. Yep. But sorry, that's my final pick. Neil, over to you.
Okay, I think I'm going to go off the list that I wrote. I'm going to go off the list that I wrote, and my final pick is going to be Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman.
Nice.
And similar to what you said, Paul, this is my favorite Batman movie. It's probably my favorite movie of all time, but it is not a particularly comic book accurate adaptation of Batman. It is a Tim Burton gothic fairy tale, which is why it was on my list for my Mount Rushmore of Tim Burton's.
One of my favorite Tim Burtons as well.
My God, what one hell of a performance did we get out of Michelle Pfeiffer in that film? I mean, you get the mousy secretary who just would not say boo to a goose, that you really believe that she just disappears into this diminutive, tiny little woman who is bullied by Max Schreck, who is just such an amazing character in his own right, and actually probably could have been on a Mount Rushmore now I think about it. But then the flip after she gets pushed out of the window, the whole sequence where she trashes her apartment, my favorite piece of Danny Elfman score of all time in that exact moment. And actually the piece of music that I really wanted to walk down the aisle to when we got married, but apparently it was too melodramatic.
It's a wedding. It's meant to be melodramatic.
But then just how her character changes when after she's, done the costume, and puts it on, and the persona that she takes on, just the whole way she performs that character, every version of her, from kind of falling apart towards the end, every single thing she does is just insane and outstanding. And I mean, just some of the behind the scenes stuff, like I know it's they wheel out the clip every time, but the fact that she whipped the head off those mannequins herself in the first take, you don't see that level of commitment to a villain role, which I think kind of ties in nicely with what you were saying about Jack Nicholson. Really, you don't see the actor disappearing into the role and enjoying it and making it their own and really just go in with it anymore. I don't feel like you see that all that much. That's like, I think you see it with Hulis in Wonder Woman, but if you think about the fact that we see so many villains that are just CGI creations, so like a Steppenwolf, you get a great vocal performance, but everything else is just what someone makes on a computer. And I feel like you lose some of the magic of performances like that. And I could easily have put Danny DeVito on here as well for playing Penguin. Again, not necessarily the most comic book accurate, but my God, does he absolutely play the hell out of that role to the point where you're like, I kind of wish this was the Penguin because this is just outstanding. And I think that's why that film, and particularly those performances, and her more so for me, deserve to be up there.
Amazing. Yeah. Can't complain.
She's so good. All the stuff with the mistletoe is so good as well. The mistletoe can be deadly if you eat it. Kiss can be even deadlier if you mean it. So good.
I mean that whole sequence, the masquerade ball sequence, is so like heartbreaking when you see the two of them realize who each other is as well. Because you see them in costume and they have such a spark as Batman and Catwoman, but then they have a different kind of spark as Michael and Michelle, as Bruce and Selena. So you do really feel it in that moment when she repeats the line back to him, and you kind of get the really subtle piece of music as the two of them kind of split apart in that dance and they look at each other. And well, I forget exactly what the line is, but where she says, "Does this mean we have to start fighting?" And it's just amazing.
So great. Also, just the bit where she holds a live bird in her mouth, and just also, it does enable Danny DeVito's best line when he arrives at his house and she's lying on the bed and he goes, "Just the pussy I've been looking for." It's a horny movie.
She even goes to the point where she licks the back of her hand and starts like wiping her head like a cat would. She really went there with the kind of the mannerisms and trying to take on the persona.
Batman Returns is a horny movie.
Absolutely.
It's so aggressive. Oh, I'm so glad you picked Catwoman. I'm so glad. Mine's really tough. I can't.
The fourth pick's trickier because you're closing the book, and that's why I struggle with the fourth on every video.
This is really tough because there's loads I can pick, but I'm gonna go on a similar route to Neil. I'm gonna pick a female villain.
Ooh.
I'm gonna go with the Phantasm from Batman: Mask of the Phantasm.
Ooh,
right. Theatrical release.
You and I are. This is me and you.
Right. Here's the thing with Batman films. Right? I love Batman. Batman's probably my favorite comic book character. Basic answer for basic people. Everybody loves Batman, right? I have never in a Batman film, and I've seen them all. I've seen all the Batman films. I've watched TV shows, everything. I have never bought a Batman love story, with the exception of maybe Returns. Maybe Returns because they had good chemistry. I never buy with Vicky Vale. I never bought with Chase Meridian, Rachel Dawes, Talia, blah blah blah, flim flim flam. Never. But in Batman: Mask of the Phantasm, I buy into the love story between Bruce Wayne and Andrea Beaumont.
Mm-hmm.
That is why she's such a good villain, because she is, the Phantasm character. She also, has a horrible bereavement. Her father's killed. She takes a similar path to Batman. She's Batman there, but for the grace of God.
Yeah.
So she's this dark mirror to him. Also, just from a design point of view, the Phantasm looks cool. Got the hook for the hands, got the mask. It's voiced by Stacey Keach. It's cool. But it's that underlying emotion to it that once he realizes Andrea is the Phantasm, you can kind of see, even in animated form, you can kind of see Bruce Wayne's heart breaks all over again. That he sacrifices that relationship. There's that great scene where he's like hugging the graves and he's like, I didn't count on being happy, and he calls off the engagement. And you can kind of see that it's that choice that sets him on his path to Batman and her on the path to the Phantasm. That they both internalize their rage. That actually, if they'd stayed together, they could have found a way through that pain. But because Bruce Wayne made a simple choice to say no, he goes one way, she goes the other way, and she internalizes that rage even more. And I think Mask of the Phantasm is a great film anyway. I think it looks great. Voice acting's great. I think the score's amazing. But I think the Phantasm is such an interesting villain because obviously now nearly everyone knows that Andrea is the Phantasm. But it's even when you watch it again, knowing that there's that kind of underlying, you kind of want to reach through the screen and go, Bruce, it's Andrea, man, come on.
Yeah.
Try and appeal to her better nature, get her to stop killing these guys. And also it's the fact that, again, she's kind of understandable. She's killing mob goons.
Yeah.
They're mob. Yeah. She's cleaning up the streets in a way Batman never could. But I think everyone you meet loves Batman Mask of the Phantasm. And I think what I would really love, you couldn't do the whodunit aspect anymore. I would love for Matt Reeves to introduce the Phantasm in the Batman universe. I think that you could do a really interesting take because, the Batman's kind of horror inflected anyway. And then you've got this Grim Reaper looking Hook, I know what you did last summer looking villain. I think if you've got a really good actress to play that role, I reckon that could become an iconic Batman storyline. And I know he said he's not doing Supernatural. I would love for Matt Reeves to adapt the Phantasm into live. There's a great, anytime she appears in a comic, I'm like, I'm gonna have to buy it.
It's amazing that she's never become a real permanent mainstay in comics.
I think that she would. The way that Renee Montoya and Harlequin did, you'd think that the Phantasm would. I will write it. DC, call me up. I'll do a storyline. It's okay. I'll write one.
It's almost like with Phantasm that there's such a legacy there they don't want to touch it, and I don't know why. Because comic books will honestly rinse anything they ever can as many times as they can in a short amount of time. And I find it really interesting that the Phantasm never made the jump to film, and I appreciate there's not really. I say there's not been many. There's been a lot of Batman films since, but there hasn't been the avenues to do it with the way that the films have gone. With the kind of director who would do it would have been Nolan, right? I'm not saying he would have, thankfully, but the grounded universe of, as you said, this is someone going out killing the mob bosses. That's something that what's Reeves is set up at the moment. We're getting a mob boss spin-off series this week, and it's something I'm really intrigued by. That are they ever going to touch it, or are they too scared that they sort of nailed it the first time? The fact it was a character created for film as well, which I think goes a long way. And I always think it's really ballsy when comic books does this.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's ballsy for the sense of, fans didn't get this person they wanted. It's just, hey, they've found a better solution. They've got a better solution. They've created someone new. I know she's not the best character, but look at Rachel in the Dark Knight films trilogy. It's someone new. They didn't just shoehorn in someone that was already known. And guess what? They got to blow her up in the middle of the sequel.
I can say something now because the embargo lifted, and anyone that is a Beatles fan will get this. But there is a character in Penguin called Summer Gleason, which, there it is. I was like, so for anybody that doesn't, Summer Gleason is the TV news reporter in Batman the Animated Series. She is kind of a mainstay throughout the whole show. She never really has a main role, but she's always there. And there's Summer Gleason.
I feel like Batman actually has quite a few. If Matt Reeves was smart, he would go for some of the more obscure.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Jezebel Jet in a movie. I'd love to see them adapt Jezebel Jet. I would love to see them adapt Man Bat. I would love. Do you know what? I'll pitch it right now. James Gunn, in your DC universe, because it's more supernatural, Sean Harris from the Mission Impossible films as Man Bat. Call me. Let's make it happen.
Because obviously, with that Batman film that they're doing having Damian, that means there needs to be a Talia and there needs to be another Raz. So it'll be interesting to see how they do those two.
Ardif Bey from the Mummy films as Ra's al Ghul. Get him in it. Get him in it. But yeah, no, Phantasm is one of those great ones that looks cool. The storyline's cool. Like I say, I never really buy into the Batman love stories. Maybe because I think the other problem is that one of the things I said when the Batman was coming out, I was like, finally, I get to watch a like it's been so long since I've seen a Batman film where Catwoman and Batman have chemistry. Because Anne Hathaway, great actress, Christian Bale, great actor, zero chemistry.
No chemistry. Yeah,
he had no chemistry with Katie Holmes, no chemistry with Maggie Gyllenhaal, none with Marion Cotillard. You know, which is a shame because he has good chemistry with Amy Adams. They should have cast Amy Adams. You know, so like. And she helped with the auditions for Batman Begins. There's a great behind-the-scenes thing.
Yes.
You can see her reading the Rachel lines for the actors playing Batman to read off of. And which makes me think maybe that's why she played Lois Lane as like a thank you. But yeah, I think the Phantasm is up there as one of the great Batman. And yeah, I'd love to see her in a live action version. I don't know who you'd cast, but I would love to see her appear.
That's got to be like a Chastain.
Is Chastain not a bit old?
She would be for Pattinson, yeah.
Yeah, I'm thinking if you were doing it for Pattinson.
Yeah, because he's young. It's a younger Batman coming through, isn't it, as well? And
he's like, what, 30, whatever, he's like 35 or something?
Yeah, so actually.
Wonder who you would get. Who would make a good... I don't know.
I like how I went generically just, who's Ginger?
Well, it's Dallas Howard.
But when it's Jessica Chastain, that's the correct answer. Simple as that.
Thing is, if it was still Ben Affleck, I would be like Jessica Chastain all day, every day.
Yeah.
Now I don't know. I don't know, but I would like to see that.
At least you guys just haven't said Sophie Turner because she was Ginger in a popular series, so we're one step ahead already.
Also, not to be mean, but I'd quite like someone who can
act.
Yeah. No, I get that as well. It will be because I think if they were to do, I mean, what? Batman, what are they going to call it? I mean, it can't be called the Batman 2 because that sounds ridiculous. But
Part 2.
Yeah, it'll be part 2.
It is a lot. In a couple of years, there might be. I'm calling this the Austin Butler June model now. Sorry to go on a tangent because I know we've got one more list to do together. But if you cast. Oh God, I'm just getting the Raja Ghouls mixed up with the Harkonnens now.
It's a shame you can't get Florence Pugh to play Phantasm. She'd make a great Phantasm.
She'd do Redhead. She could be Redhead.
Oh yeah, she'd change it. I mean, she's gone bold for the Andrew Garfield one. She'll definitely.
She's busy. She's busy doing. She's busy. Hello, I am Black Widowing. I am busy.
Forget that's coming out. Oh no.
I am busy doing Marvel film. Oh no, I cannot do Batman.
I think if you look at Austin Butler, he wouldn't have been cast if his character was in Dune Part 1. As he's in the book, so no, we'll cast him in Part 2 when we need him. In that window, Austin Butler gets...
Yeah.
And I would love something similar for the Batman. You know Barry Keoghan, right? By the time it comes down to him, I say being the Joker, if they really want to show him this time, they'd have been like, hey, casual people, hey, we saw Saltburn. We saw this, we saw that. He's been in a load of things. And I feel like Matt Reeves seems pretty hot with his casting choices of the actors he's gone for. And I think if someone were to be on the rise now, and they might be a household name in 2 years, that's the sort of person they would go for something like that. Because I feel like he's nailed the cast so far. In every single role, the ensemble, phenomenal. But time will tell. And kind of this one,
Andy Serkis is a great Alfred. Andy Serkis.
Andy Serkis is perfect as Alfred. Absolutely amazing choice as Alfred. I will not hear any bad word ever said. And it's a role he's also happy to do as well.
No, he's great. He's absolutely great.
Totally
I love that they went for the Earth One design for Alfred. Clever. Yeah. No, Matt Reeves, you're a genius.
Sorry, we can't cast you as a monkey in this one. We're not doing Clayface, so we don't need your motion capture. Would you like to play Alfred? It's like whenever I see Andy Serkis in human form, it's the fact I have to say he's in human form because people just don't realize how good he is. Yeah, like he's honestly like Andor. Guess what? We've got Andy Serkis in Star Wars again. Really? Yeah, he's a human this time, and he's fucking great. One of the best surprise roles I've ever seen in a series. I was like, "Is that Andy Serkis?" And it was.
Andy Serkis is an underrated actor. I'm glad we're singing his praises. Do you know what he's great in? 13 going on 30.
The Prestige.
Also, The Prestige. 13 going on 30. Underrated movie.
Absolutely.
Hilarious. My balls are in a vice. How long until your balls get squished? Well, hopefully never. I'm quite attached to my balls. Great.
Genius role.
Right. So before we move on, because I'm going to remember to do it this time, we're going to go through our Mount Rushmores each. So we'll have a lovely graphic. So my 4, I've got Heath Ledger's Joker, the Riddler from Batman Forever, General Zod from Man of Steel, and Jack Nicholson's Joker from Batman 89. Neil.
So I went for Jack Nicholson's Joker. I went for Tony Todd's Darkseid, Gene Hackman's Lex Luthor, and Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman.
Paul.
I went for David Thewlis's Ares, the God of War, / Sir Patrick Morgan. I went for I can't remember the order I did it. Oh yeah, I went for Liam Neeson's Ra's al Ghul / Henry Ducard, as he's known from Batman Begins. I went for Peter Stormare's Lucifer from Constantine, and I went for Dana Delaney's excellent performance as Andrea Beaumont, aka the Phantasm from Batman: Mask of the Phantasm.
Excellent. So, guys, we're gonna have one more task between us, and I feel it's gonna be a lot harder than the Tim Burton one. I combined Mount Rushmore, and I guess the logic of this is I'm not going to go into American politics because every week I don't know what the American politics is, but taking away all of our own personal bias, our preferences, what we maybe were raised on, what we think, what do we genuinely think is the 4 atop DC's Mount Rushmore? Neil, I'm going to just jump to you first as the DC expert. I'm not saying just pick 4, but can I just chuck a suggestion in the room?
Yeah.
Are there space for 2 Jokers?
Ooh.
Because if you're talking cinema,
yeah,
I certainly would make the, not because they're on my list, but I would genuinely be looking at Nicholson for that, and Ledger for winning the Oscar.
2 lists.
Well, yeah, that too. That he should. Yeah, I'm being polite, but I do think, given Heath Ledger's stature within the comic book series, modern media, the events that's the Dark Knight, is it biased of me to suggest both Jokers go on there? I'm not suggesting more than them 2, but I think those 2 would fairly be on there, right?
I think so.
Yeah, no, I think so too, because you look at Nicholson, and that is similar to Superman 78. That's a big turning point in how comic book movies can be made. This is that they don't have to be light and bright and shiny. This is they can be dark and they can be really grim. And then when you go to Ledger, you get that actually they can also be cerebral at the same time. Like they're not just dumb. There is actually psychology and there are things going on here. So yeah, I think that works.
An Oscar-winning performance too. Sorry, Becky, I'm not talking about you today. You're not technically a villain by default. You are, but you're not. You're a villain to people that work on film sets. So, yeah, get the compensation paid for everyone on that drama that shut down.
You're not the Joker. You're just a guy in a film dressed as a clown, but you're not the Joker.
I know. It's the sequel. But don't worry, we're doing another DC video in 2 weeks. No, next week and the week after. So maybe the Joker will pop up. That Joker, not.
It's not a musical. It's not a musical. It's a film where people sing when they can't talk, but it's not a musical. Even though what they just described is a fucking musical. It's not
Sorry,
an action
I'm being
film.
silent.
It's just a
Not
film
to
where
the
people
musical.
drive cars past and fight each other. Oh, okay. Idiots. Fucking Lady Gaga. I love you, Gaga. You were great in A Star Is Born, but you know. It's a musical. What you described as a musical.
I'll see it. I'm going to watch it. I'm excited for it. But...
I'm going to see it because it's got Steve Coogan in it, and I can't wait every time he appears. Yeah, I keep watching the trailers, and Steve Coogan
appears. Alan Partridge is in Joker too.
Yeah.
I really hope the first thing he says is "Aha!"
Yeah, I take it you've not watched the second trailer.
No, I've stayed far away from trailers.
So,
I know Bradley Gleeson's in it, which caught me off guard.
He's quite heavily in the second trailer, but he's major role.
Lynn, I've become the Joker.
I'm in. Sorry, I've derailed the conversation. I'm in. Alan Partridge meets the Joker. Sorry, different conversation. Right. Combine Mount Rushmore's. Okay. We're halfway through. Now, I don't have the knowledge, as I've said, of all of DC. So, Neil, I'm going to politely head over to you. What are your thoughts on Hackman's Luthor? Lex Luthor. Not Luthor starring Idris Elba.
Good though.
I think in the pantheon of DC villains,
he's in the film of Luthor.
Okay, Hackman's up. Paul, do you think Hackman's up?
Yeah. I think so. So. He's like the OG. I think so.
I know, that's where, and it's important because that's the point of the Mount Rushmore, right? It's not just what's the logic isn't pick your 4 favorites, pick your 4 best. This one is that you're looking at DC films as an overview. It's a massive.
I think as well. People say about Batman 89 as like without Batman 89 there'd be no thing. But the thing is, 4 different directors have all cited that Superman film as a direct inspiration, right? Sam Raimi said it was. Bryan Singer, boo, said it was. Christopher Nolan said not just down to like
as well.
Yeah, he said that it was like the idea that you would have these massive name actors in these supporting roles, and that's why Batman Begins is popular with Morgan Freeman, Michael Caine, Rutger Hauer, Liam Neeson. It comes from that first, and Gene Hackman taking an iconic villain role, and the other person who was Patty Jenkins, obviously with Wonder Woman. And you know, without that, you don't get Willem Dafoe as Green Goblin. You don't get Jack Nicholson as Joker. You don't get Danny DeVito. You don't get, these high-profile name actors. Arguably, you don't get Josh Brolin as Thanos. You don't get these A-list actors, these proper thespians tackling these comic book roles without Gene Hackman doing it first as Luthor. He kind of set the table by going, look, you can be a legit actor that people respect and get Oscars, and also have a bit of fun in a comic book movie. So he's got to be on there. He's the OG.
Amazing. Right, we got 3. So where are we heading with number 4? It's tricky. This is the first one we've done with characters, not films as well. And it's so much trickier with the characters because with a film you could pick one that covers 4 great villains. And I'm not going to put forward, the Riddler or General Zod. If I'm honest, I'm not going to put forward Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze, who is iconic in his own right. But at the same time, without it sounding like I'm dissing modern DC films, I can't really think of a truly great villain in recent. I mean, my favorite DC film last few years is Suicide Squad, right?
Yeah,
the villain's is giant starfish. It's great. It's not on this list. And
Starro the Conqueror.
Oh, it's great. Starro's great.
I mean, if you were talking about a list that is kind of encompassing comic books, then you wouldn't even have a Justice League if you didn't have Starro, because Starro is the villain that made the Justice League come together for the first time ever in comic books. That's where Starro comes from. So the first ever Justice League book was them fighting Starro. That is the first image of them together on the cover of a comic book is fighting Starro. That's why Gunn was going right back to the beginning with that.
Excellent. I love James Gunn. I can't wait to see what he does for the next few years. Not just with Superman.
Me too. I can't wait to meet him at some point and just have a conversation.
He'll say, do you know what? Slither is massively underrated. Slither's great. And also, thanks for writing Scooby-Doo the movie. I love you for that.
Absolutely.
You wrote, and Scooby-Doo 2, you wrote 2 great movies that are so quotable and mean so much to me. I love you, James Gunn. Give me a hug, you big grey bear.
So I think there's an argument for Shannon's Zod. I do also, though, think that there is a very strong argument for Andrea
Michelle
Beaumont.
Pfeiffer.
No,
Okay.
I think Phantasm deserves it because it's exemplary. Well, because Harley Quinn hasn't been in an animated movie in terms of the BTAS version. I think in terms of showing how you can create a character completely original and it have that kind of impact, that's exemplary of DC doing it in a film, because they've never done it in live action, but they have managed it in animation.
And I think animation's been a crucial part of DC with their
Massively.
step into filming.
Massively.
We're not just talking live action. We've had a few animated picks, and I kind of agree with that. And you look at Mask of the Phantasm. I mean, the fact of Mark Hamill's Joker in that film as well.
Yep.
You look at who's involved.
I very nearly picked him. I thought there was too many Jokers on the table.
No, it'd been a very. No one would have complained if you picked Mark Hamill's Joker. Like
Mark Hamill is the Joker in my head. That when I read the comics,
yes,
it's Hamill and Conroy. I hear.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with Phantasm. I do want to dip into animated. I love Zod, but I think for the sake and discussion of this list, I'm kind of with what you said. I'm more into Phantasm in the sense of DC has had a big part of animation, and this is the defining that the character created for this film, not adapting anyone, not bringing in someone for the first time. It was, hey, we're creating a new character, and that's quite ballsy in an animated Batman film off the back of the animated series.
Yep.
To create a new character, what I mentioned about the Batman 66 group earlier, they'd all been on TV with each other. They'd popped up every other week with each other, and they were great to get them on a film. But Batman 66 film, they didn't create somebody new and say, here's your new villain for this. By the way, they're tied in with Bruce Wayne. Yeah. It was what we knew. And I think there's a lot of credit for that. And I'm sort of leaning towards Phantasm over Zod. Paul, what are you thinking? You think there might be someone else?
I mean, maybe I'm biased because I picked Phantasm. But I think as well, what's great is that as a lot of Batman's female villains have been ones that, as you would have used their femininity and their sexuality so Talia definitely has, Catwoman does, Poison Ivy frequently, especially before she became more of an eco-terrorist, where she was just a sexy plant woman. But like Catwoman's always used her feminine wiles. Talia has always had that kind of thing where she almost straddles the line between hero and villain, and it's that kind of push and pull between her dad and her and the love of her life and things like that. But the Phantasm is a female villain who there's no femininity to the Phantasm. All the way, the fact that the voice is Stacy Keach, and people think that it's a man all the way through is kind of using their, hiding in plain sight. If I bulk up, no one will know I'm a woman and I can carry on doing this, and they'll blame men for it. So I think in that way it's quite ballsy, but also it is that kind of thing of, when you're doing a film, especially I know obviously the comics are the basis, but really you're doing a film of a TV show.
Yeah.
You're adapting, people were seeing that because it was, we love the cartoon, now we want to watch the movie. Yeah. You have to have a bigger canvas, and the threat has to be something that you've not seen on TV every single week. And even with the Joker, you'd seen him every week. He got defeated in 25 minutes. So to then be like, you've got to sit down for an hour and a half would have been, I think, a bit difficult with a guy. It's like, yeah, but the last time he tried to poison the water, Batman solved this, so it'd be a bit difficult. So and also it's quite interesting to have Joker be a secondary character.
Yeah.
Someone that's almost got to ally with Batman to solve this problem. And I think that it's quite clever the way that the whole film kind of ties the Joker and the Phantasm and Batman all together, and kind of, in a way says they're all linked. They're all part of this, the knock-on effect of this crime empire. And I think, picking an original villain, and the whole premise of the film is who is this villain? Who, what's their motivation? Who is beneath the mask of the Phantasm? Even though, very famously, the tie-in toy ruined the shock by releasing the toy with Andrea Beaumont unbloody masked, which is, people have a go at the Terminator Genesis trailer ruining the plot twist, and you've got that one. It's like, but I think also comic book movies don't always have great women villains. I think
No, that's true.
And when you do, and also making the emotion, because obviously emotion is something that women get criticized for, but making the emotion of her motivation be something that's so tied to something so personal and something that actually has to make Batman pause and, almost question his role in everything. And so, is Batman ruining lives? I think is a really good thing. So yeah, I definitely think she should be on there, and I think she should be in live action.
Excellent. So that rounds out our combined Mount Rushmore. So we've got Joker. I almost said Batman 89. I was like, no. We've of course got Jack Nicholson's Joker, Heath Ledger's Joker, Lex Luthor from the original Superman films, and Phantasm from Master Phantasm, which makes a pretty good 4. Yes, there's 3 Batman villains in there, but you know what? What's that right? He's got the best rogue gallery after Spider-Man. It could be the same when we do a Marvel one. Who knows? But that is still a pretty great. And there's so many big names we've missed out. And that is what goes with this. We've each had our own stories about why we've got attachments to certain villains, certain characters. And when we do the heroes one next week, at least we know we can't pick like 4 Batmans. I mean, you kind of can if you wanted to, but at least it's somewhat brought back down to reality with the best DC heroes. So I want to thank both of you for joining me today. I know we've gone a little bit longer, but it's always amazing discussing it with you both. I've definitely learned a lot more as well, especially with the animated stuff. So thank you, Neil. Just very quickly, before we round out, I want to know what you're both up to. I know we've all mentioned Penguin screeners. Neil, you've been having a very exciting week at Batman as well. Yeah. Do you want to talk about what you've been up to, what people can find on the channel?
Yeah. So I went to press night at the Batman Unmasked exhibit, which is running in London till the 3rd of November. It is open now. It has costumes from Keaton, Bale, Pattinson. You've got Riddler's in there, Poison Ivy's in there. Who else is in there? Scarecrow, Bane, Harley Quinn, loads. Props, insane. So they have got all of Val Kilmer's bat props, like Batarangs and Clooney's. It's so cool. So everyone needs to go check that out because it's amazing. If you're a Bat fan, it is absolutely incredible. Penguin. I've not written my review yet because I still have an episode left to watch. And I now know when I am seeing Joker, which is very exciting. So I'm seeing it on the 25th of September, which is going to be very, very cool. That is coming up soon. I'm going to the premiere, which is very exciting. Thank you, Warner Brothers.
Very well
DC stuff. It's kind of we've had a quiet DC year so far, and now it is very DC heavy going into the end of the year.
As someone that's done videos with you for a long time, knows you outside of this as well to degree. I'm not just saying because on the channel. It's very well earned that someone goes to a premiere like that who actually deserves to be there, unlike all these weird TikTokers. Not that they're going to be watching, but can't stand them. And you deserve to be there for what you've done as well.
Thank you.
Paul, I believe you've also, like me, got not Joker screeners. That would be a different conversation. Penguin screeners, which neither of us have watched yet. But what else have you been working on? You've been very busy.
All glorious 8 episodes I need to watch, but that's in the pipe. That's tomorrow Paul's problem, not today Paul's problem. I'm still editing for Filmhounds magazine. I'm mainly at the moment getting ready for London Film Festival, mentally preparing to see Night Bitch. Can't wait for Night Bitch. It's gonna be so good. Can't wait. Amy Adams is going to win that Oscar if I have to kill every nominee. If I have to wrestle the Oscar out of Angelina Jolie's hands. So yeah, I'm mainly doing that, mainly editing, always doing reviews. Nothing. I can't think of anything major that's happening at the moment. So it's just general seeing films and then going, I liked it, when everyone else says they hated it, because at the moment that's how it feels. Feels like I like everything everyone hates.
Oh. No,
they call me the contrarian.
But listen, it's great. And everyone should follow both of you. We've got links in the description. And we will probably have you guys on again at some point in the next few weeks. I know we've had you both on the first, 3 official episodes, 2 out of the 3. Tate is on holiday this week, folks. So I'm sure he'll be back as well. And we should have some more exciting guests. But thank you both for coming on. I love doing this series. We've only done a few episodes, but it's very different to what we've done before. And I'm glad it's working, or at least I think it's working. And hey, if it's not working, people watching at home comment your thoughts. Let us know your thoughts on our DC Mount Rushmore, our personal ones, what your DC villains Mount Rushmore would also be, because we do want to hear from people. And if you want to find out about other videos we're working on, go get us on social medias, linktree.com/cinemasavvy. We now post clips of our episodes onto YouTube Shorts, onto Instagram Reels as well. And that's little bite-sized clips to see if you like what we're talking about, or if we've said something controversial or something just very entertaining, which is what we do. We had a great one of Paul talking about the Lion King from last week. So you can go get us on our social medias there, and that's where we also announce other videos. So that is going to do it for today. We will be back next Tuesday with another episode, as I mentioned, on DC Heroes. I can't pick 4 Christopher Nolan ones this time around, but who knows what else might be on there. But that being said, thank you all for watching, and we'll see you on the next one. Take care.